Welcome to a Sunday morning service at San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Georgetown, Texas. I am Reverend Sandra Ingham, interim minister here at San Gabriel. You might be watching this anytime, not necessarily on Sunday morning, the 5th of July. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever time you tune in, you are most welcome at the San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. This church is a green sanctuary and a welcoming congregation. And if you want to learn more about Unitarian Universalism in general, visit uua.org. To find out more about this congregation in particular, go to sangabrieluu.org. You will find our newsletter, The Messenger, there on our website. Members and friends are, as always, gently reminded to read that newsletter weekly. There are some important meetings happening soon, all in mid-July. The Board of Trustees, the new board, will meet with the old board at 10 a.m. on Saturday, July 11th. The Social Justice Committee will meet on Friday, July 17th at 5:30 p.m. And the Sunday Services team will meet Saturday, July 18th at 1 p.m. This information is in the newsletter, and the links to these meetings would be in there also. The Sunday Services team and the Social Justice team, they're always looking for people to join them. And the Sunday Services team is trying to recruit a chairperson. I think that's all the business that I have at the moment. The words for lighting our chalice were written by Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it burn away the tethers that uphold white supremacy in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. And may it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals. Sing out, because it's only you and whoever else is in the room with you. Our opening hymn, We Would Be One. The opening words were written by Unitarian Universalist Manish K. Mishra-Marzetti. Between rocking the boat and sitting down, between stirring things up and peaceably going along, we find ourselves here in community, each called from many different journeys, many different life paths onto this river road. Some are here because the rocking of the boat has been too much. Too much tumult, too much uncertainty, too much pain. Some are here with questions about where the boat is going, how best to steer it, where this journey ends. Others are here as lovers of the journey, lovers of life itself. Here in front, beside, behind, each a passenger, each a captain, doing the best we can. Rest here in your boat with me, the river calls. Listen, listen to how I flow, the sound of life coursing all around you. Let the current hold you. Let the current guide you. The river that gently flows through your soul whispers, "Come, let us worship." Please join me now in saying the words of this congregation's affirmation. We're not singing it today. And remembering as you say the words that an affirmation is a covenant, a promise. The doctrine of this church is love. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. Well, here's Corinna. Good morning, Corinna. I'm so happy that you are here with the Wonder Box and the story. And the name of the story is What Do You Do with a Chance? And it was written by Kobe Yamada. It is a great story. I told Corinna that I'm going to add this book to my collection of children's books. So thank you, Corinna, for introducing me to this story about taking a chance.
Thank you, Reverend Sandy, and good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be back together. And if all went well yesterday, I got a chance to visit with many of you at church during our July 4th demonstration for Black Lives. And that certainly keeps me strong in spirit, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much to everyone who helped organize that event. We really do lean and depend on each other as we do this work, don't we? So please let me know how I can continue to be a resource and a help for you in that. Now, who is ready for a little wondering? Got the Wonder Box here. We use help each other learn and grow. All of us, kids, adults, together. Have you made a guess? Not a lot of noise coming out of here. If you're near someone, let them know what you think might be in here. I'm gonna open it up. It's a pair of swimming goggles. Do you remember learning how to swim? Might be some time back. It can be a little scary, along with a lot of other things that we do for the very first time, like riding a bike, going to school, meeting new people. Trying something you don't already know how to do is difficult. But I, for one, am very glad that I know how to swim. I feel safe knowing how to swim. And I swam on my team in high school, and I made new friends that way. And I still swim for exercise, which is really important for my body. I wonder what my life would have been like if I hadn't learned to swim. Probably wouldn't have that much fun at the beach or on a boat. I'm glad that I didn't let fear hold me back. I'm glad I took that chance and I learned to swim. And I've got a story for you about that now. What Do You Do with a Chance by Kobe Yamada. One day, I got a chance. It just seemed to show up. It acted like it knew me, as if it wanted something. I didn't know why it was here. What do you do with a chance? I wondered. It fluttered around me. It brushed up against me. It circled me as if it wanted me to grab it. I started to reach for it, but I was unsure and pulled back, and so it flew away. I thought about it a lot. I wished I had taken my chance. I realized I had wanted it, but I still didn't know if I had the courage. When another chance came around, I wasn't so sure, but I decided to try. I went to reach for it, but I missed and fell. I was embarrassed. I felt foolish. It seemed like everyone was looking at me. I decided I never wanted to feel this way again. So after that, whenever a chance came along, I ignored it. And the more I ignored them, the less they came around. Until one day, I noticed that I hadn't seen a chance in quite a while. It was as if they had all disappeared. I started to worry. What if I don't get another chance? I know I acted like I didn't care, but the truth was I did. I still wanted to take a chance, but I was afraid, and I wasn't sure if I would ever be brave enough. Then I thought, maybe I don't have to be brave all the time. Maybe I just need to be brave for a little while at the right time. I realized it was up to me. I promised myself that if I ever got another chance, I wasn't going to hold back. If I got another chance, I was going to be ready. Then, one seemingly ordinary day, I saw something shining far off in the distance. Is it possible, I hoped? Could this be my chance? I had to find out. I ran as hard and as fast as I could toward it. I don't know how to explain it, but the second I let go of my fears, I was full of excitement. It wasn't that I was no longer afraid, but now my excitement was bigger than my fear. As I got closer, I could see that this was a really huge chance. But this time I was ready. As it came by, I reached out and grabbed it. I held on with all my might. It felt so good to soar, to fly, to be free. I now see that when I hold back, I miss out, and I don't want to miss out. There's just so much I want to see and do and discover. So, what do you do with the chance? You take it, because it just might be the start of something incredible. Trying new things, taking chances. These are things we can do in community. Being anti-racist, working to dismantle white supremacy is very hard work. But if we take that chance, we will help start something incredible. The beloved community where all are valued that we envision as you use at San Gabriel. May it be so. I look forward to seeing children at RE time today at 5 p.m. We will share joys and concerns, and we'll talk about the summer fun projects that we've been working on and a little bit more about taking chances. I'll see you then. Bye for now.
Thank you, Corinna. Please take a few moments now to center yourselves in silence and breathing. The reading that I would like to share with you today is titled, I've Known Her All My Life. And it was written by Unitarian Universalist minister Greg Ward, who was a classmate of mine in seminary. Greg writes this: when I was young, I admired her. I wanted to be like her and just appreciated the way she carried herself. In my teens, I became obsessed. She was like a rock star to me. But later, I began to think I'd outgrown her. I remember not liking how relentless and inflexible she was. I didn't tell her directly. Instead, I tried to avoid her, but she kept showing up. Originally, I thought if I paid her no attention, she would just take the hint and leave me alone. But she didn't. She acted in complete disregard of my opinion. I began wondering if she showed up just to annoy me. I began to develop an attitude about her, treating her with contempt. She treated me with a benign indifference. Whenever I saw her around, I braced myself. I stiffened. I'd see her and sigh or mumble to myself. Eventually, I openly complained to others behind her back, something I didn't believe would help, and it didn't. She came anyway. She got into my head, and when it got real bad, I stayed up late thinking about her. I thought about how much I didn't like her, wishing she'd just leave me alone. Then, probably just to get my goat, she started getting mixed up with parts of my life I had always taken for granted and talked about in terms of always and forever, these particular parts of my life. She even began hanging out with my parents. It was at that point that I began to notice her friends, who, like her, showed up uninvited. They all traveled in a pack together. There was Heartbreak, who always dressed so alluringly. Grief and Desire, who were always together. And Nostalgia, who always seemed to wear a disconcerting, faraway expression. Everywhere they went, they would get into these intense conversations, often overwhelming people. I'm talking about change, and I've known her all my life. And for the longest time, I haven't been sure what to make of her, whether to love her, praise her, hate her, or ignore her. But here's the thing that has made the difference. I began noticing that the happiest people I have known in my life really like her. They don't avoid her. They've accepted her completely just as she is. My father, before he died, started taking dance lessons from her. And they became good friends. And it was only after I became comfortable with her appreciation, with his appreciation of her, that he and I had some of our most memorable conversations. Change, despite your preferences, is with you and part of church and the world around us. What is your relationship to her? Have you ever thought of asking her to dance? If you do, she just might show you the steps leading to those places you've always wanted to go. As I wrote in the newsletter blurb about this week's reflections, I don't have my holidays mixed up. I know that this is the 4th of July, time of the year, not New Year's Day, traditional New Year's Day anyway. I don't do the 4th of July. If we could be truthful in this country about freedom and independence and interdependence and fly the flag honestly, I could be a fan of the day. But there are plenty of reasons to celebrate a new year, and every day is the beginning of a new year, is it not? I have given New Year's sermons at various times during the year, most notably during the Jewish high holidays. Our Jewish friends celebrate the beginning of their new year during those high holidays in the fall of the year. A new year, a new day, a new week, a new month. Each of those gives us hope of change, the promise of at least the possibility of possibilities. Am I a patriot? No. Am I patriotic? Yes. If, by that word patriotic, we mean passionately believing in the ideals upon which this country was founded, and if we are talking about this country's potential. On July 5th, 1852, Frederick Douglass gave a speech in Rochester, New York, his hometown, about the 4th of July and about independence and freedom. Douglass, social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, statesman, had escaped from slavery in Maryland. He was a living counterexample to the argument by slaveholders that slaves lacked the intellectual capacity to function as independent American citizens. Northerners found it hard to believe that such a great orator had once been a slave. Some of you may remember the disbelief many of us felt when Donald Trump, in the early months of his presidency, displayed his complete ignorance of who Frederick Douglass was. In fact, Trump believed that Douglass was a contemporary, and he, Trump, planned to invite Douglass to the White House for a chat. As I said to the congregation I was then serving in Madison, Wisconsin, oh, well, I think we should try to get him here to speak. Douglass was invited to give this speech commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence, as Wikipedia tells us. I don't like to use Wikipedia, but sometimes it works. The speech was filled with, quote, biting oratory. And here's a quote from it. "This 4th of July is yours," it's an all-white audience, "not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. Even after Trump's snafu, I still wasn't ready to help dismantle systems in this country. I think because I didn't believe it was possible to make systemic change. I'm a believer now. I am ready now. There is such a tremendous gap between what this country says its ideals are and what this country's actions are. I don't know if we can close that gap. The United States of America was built on a false foundation. That building of this nation began when the first white people arrived on the North American continent and treated the native peoples living here as less than, as unequal beings because they were different. Well, because the whites wanted the land, but because they were different, very different in what they believed and in the way they lived in relationship with Mother Earth. This practice of subjugation and domination was reinforced with the institution of slavery and continued from the year 1619, when the first African slaves were brought to this country, until the present time. The attempted genocide of Native Americans has also continued to the present day. I cannot, in good conscience, celebrate the 4th of July. Am I being self-serving with this attitude? I don't know. This is a new concept for me that some people of color bring up. I don't know if my motivation is being self-serving. I only know it is wrong to be proud of American independence and freedom when those only apply to a certain segment of America's population. I was a history major as an undergraduate. That may have been when I stopped wanting to have anything to do with July 4th. My first undergraduate experience was at American University in Washington, D.C., where I was a freshman in the School of International Service. I did not know about Unitarian Universalism at that point in my life. So, in the School of International Service, I learned about diplomacy, internationalism, global communities, the concept of one race, the human race. A decade later, I would learn about Unitarian Universalism and the World Council of Churches, the interdependent web, and all those good things we in this faith tradition supposedly believe in. I wasn't ready in college to dismantle the systems that are based on white supremacy and white privilege. I dropped out of college in 1964 to get married. I did finish college eventually. My first child was born in response to, I hope he's not watching this, but he knows this story. He was born in response to the brief period of time when Lyndon Johnson's administration exempted married men. That didn't last very long, but exempted them from the draft. And then also for just a brief period of time, it had to be a married man with children. I still wasn't ready to challenge the status quo systems. I didn't know that that was an option. I wasn't paying attention. In August of 1966, when that child was just a little over a year old, the Huff riots erupted in East Cleveland, where we lived. I have mentioned before the story of putting that baby in the car and driving through the Huff area out of curiosity very early on a Sunday morning so we would be safe. I still wasn't ready, even though 4 blacks were killed just a couple of miles from our apartment. 50 people were injured. I did not understand how awful America's ingrained systems of operation are. The official narrative about what caused these riots was that communists and black nationalists were responsible, even though eventually poverty and racism were discovered to be the causes of the riots. But the decline in the Huff area and the subsequent economic downturn would last for at least 5 decades. That area still has not recovered. And although I saw the destruction firsthand, I still wasn't ready to challenge the system. Again, I did not know that was an option. I guess I thought that the way things worked was based on something carved in stone. I did not know about the 2 Americas, even though it was right there in front of my face. 2 Americas. I can't celebrate a holiday about freedom as long as there are 2 Americas. It has taken me far too long to begin to understand the reality of the 2 Americas. This morning's story for all ages is about chance. Taking chances means embracing change. What we are called as people of faith to do right now. The narrator in the story ignored chances that came his way, and eventually chances stopped coming around. He wanted to take a chance, but maybe he wasn't brave enough, he thought. But he did manage, by the end of the story, to let go of his fear. I don't think he really let go of it, but he learned to work with it, maybe. And when he could move on, he was ready to take a chance. Despite fear, he found himself full of excitement. And I promise you, so will you if you embrace change. Taking a chance will mean trusting in change, which can be exhilarating. We've known change all our lives, whether we've been aware of it or not, of the knowing. How do we learn to cherish change, to use it to our advantage in this unprecedented, unique, challenging moment in history? Do you realize how fortunate we are, we humans, who are alive at this moment in time? Do you realize how fortunate we are to be here when everything and anything is possible? Are you ready? How can I say that, you ask? We are in the midst of a pandemic. Yes, we are. And isn't it fascinating that because of the pandemic, in the midst of it, we are learning some truths about reality? One is a pleasant truth, at least for us, because it's one of our Unitarian Universalist principles, that we are one, that we are caught in that inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny, as Martin Luther King Jr. so eloquently put it. But an unpleasant truth that we are becoming aware of in this pandemic is that people of color are suffering more from the virus than people with white skin. This is valuable knowledge, though, when we look at the reasons why this is so. There are 2 Americas. If you are BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, person of color, you already knew this. But many, many white people did not know this, and they still don't, or they refuse to acknowledge the fact. The world has turned upside down, and this might not be an entirely awful occurrence. I know that I am not in my right mind. I am not in my right mind. In the last week, during General Assembly week, I completely forgot about ministry days, which are very, very important to me, and take place for 2 full days before General Assembly starts. Someone asked me how ministry days were. Oh. And then during General Assembly, this happens whether it's a virtual GA or it's an in-person one, I was exchanging texts with many people, and I realized that I had mixed up texts. Still don't know how I did that. So I was sending off texts to someone who at first sort of got what I was talking about because it was general enough, but then when I got specific, she finally texted me back and said, this is so-and-so. I think you have the wrong person. I am not in my right mind. But how can we be right now? Why should we be in our right minds? I don't mean because of the pandemic and the worldwide economic woes. No, I mean, why should we be in our right minds right now when people of color are still living in that other America? When too many people still don't get the meaning of the words Black Lives Matter. I am not in my right mind. But maybe we have to be shaken out of our normal mindsets in order to see the world as it really is and finally be ready and willing to change it. Many people are ready right now. Look at all the protests and all the great numbers. And now people are starting to talk about changing protesting into policy making. Look at all the people ready right now to walk down to that water's edge to be part of those who are pathfinders. Maybe we are even ready to enter the water and try to cross to the other side. I am referencing with those words an Olive Schreiner poem, and you'll recognize it if you attended the Sunday service at General Assembly last Sunday. Olive Schreiner, born March 24th, 1855 in Cape Colony, South Africa, and she died December 11th, 1970. Look her up. Find out who she is. Read her writings. Not everyone will make it to the other side of the river. Not everyone will even get very far on that path down to the river. Desmond Tutu said, "Some of us will not see the day of our liberation physically, but those people will have contributed to the struggle." When will we be ready to make systemic change? When will we be ready to make the massive structural changes in this country that may finally fulfill the promises of both the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution? All men are created equal? Okay. What about us women? What about all people, regardless of their skin color, whether they are black, brown, yellow, white, or combined shades, or purple, or blue, as one NPR National Public Radio commentator was trying to explain racism to his very youngest son, and of course, what the very young son caught were the blue and purple colors, and he looked at his dad and said, "Are there really people who are purple and blue people?" When will we be ready? If not now, when? We have this unique, unprecedented, amazing moment in history. Are we ready to be the midwives to birthing new systems and to provide the hospice care for the dying of the old systems? Yes, we have to be ready, and we can be ready because the ancestors have shown us the way. We are ready because we are all children of stardust, because we are ready and we are paying attention to the stories of the ancestors now. We are ready because we have had an aha moment, at least many of us have, about what Indigenous people can teach us about so many things, but especially in these times about sustainability. Sustaining this movement, yes, but also sustaining human life ecologically, respecting Mother Earth. From Indigenous people, a wonderful quote: "Wealth is not what you accumulate, it is what you give." Will we get discouraged? Yes, of course we will. Will we continue to have days when it seems as if there is no reason to get out of bed? Absolutely. Especially while the coronavirus continues to hold us captive and to limit our movements. But I repeat, watching this moment in history unfold is a gift, a blessing, a moment when real change might actually occur. Will there be backlash? Will there be despair? No doubt. And no doubt there will be despair because there will continue to be backlash, and that backlash will be ratcheted up before it is finished. Remember, we're birthing new ways of being. We're the midwives, people of faith, and lots of other good people too. And remember dying. Remember birthing, remember dying. We are the hospice workers for a dying system. Weariness, yes, it descends yet again when we hear about over-the-top backlash. And you know that there will be extremists pushing back as the old world continues its slow dying. Backlash doesn't always show itself in acts of violence. In mid-June that we just had, New York City's Committee on Public Safety met to consider a series of amendments to the city's administrative code pertaining to police brutality, making chokeholds a misdemeanor, for example. The chair of that committee began the meeting with these words: "Today, we are going to remind the New York City Police Department that they work for us, the people." And that chairperson, Donovan Richards, happens to be a black man. He was first stopped and frisked by the police at age 13 for no apparent reason. A strange thing about this meeting, which was open to the public for comments and questions, was that the police commissioner, Dermot Shea, who is white, he was not there. No, perhaps he was too busy, I don't know. He sent his deputy commissioner, Benjamin Tucker, who was a black man, and who read a prepared statement. There was an in-depth story titled "The Uprising, Letter from Minneapolis" in a recent New Yorker magazine. It was about the Minneapolis protests and the immediate aftermath of George Floyd's murder. It was written by Luke Mogelson, a white man, but he shadowed several protesters, all of them people of color, for several days. And at one point, well, more than one point, but at this one particular point, things got really dicey. The police were right up against the protesters. And at this point in time, Mogelson was shadowing a 19-year-old black woman who had never been to protests before. Her last name is Hunter. Mogelson writes this about the experience. Deep down, this was after his now friend Hunter, the woman he was shadowing, was hit with a police baton. Mogelson said, "Deep down, I was not afraid of the police. On an instinctive level, I understood that there was a limit to what they could do to me. If the legitimate fear that law enforcement officers instilled in black protesters was fundamentally unknowable to me, so was the courage that people like Hunter had to summon when standing up to them." Mogelson was weary. I am weary. The more that I learn about racism and the two Americas, the more exhausted I am. Just think about that. Think about how I'm just free to say that. I speak from a place of profound privilege, unearned racial advantage, a new phrase for me, which one of the workshop presenters at General Assembly introduced me to. If I am weary, I cannot imagine the depth of weariness BIPOC persons are. Remember, this is another new acronym, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color. But from that General Assembly Sunday service, I took such good advice on combating the weariness. We have to be as grateful as we may be weary. As grateful as we may be weary. It's okay to feel all these things, weariness, fear, anger, but we must remember gratitude. Our creativity and our will are being tested every day, but there are antidotes, countermeasures to backlash that we can practice daily, and we have our audacious chalice to use. We are ready now if we remember that readiness does not mean being perfect. Readiness means we are ready to take risks, to be creative in doing the work of dismantling unjust systems. Making systemic changes requires that we white folks be humble, that we do a lot of educating of ourselves, and that we quiet those inner voices demanding perfectionism and rugged individualism before we're ready. We are the breath of our ancestors, Olive Schreiner reminds us. How many generations does it take to realize the dream of racial equality? How many generations need to live in a different America, an unfair, unjust one? We are our grandmother's prayers and our grandfather's star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. And there, at that General Assembly, and in the New Yorker, one of my sacred texts, I saw it. I saw it just for a fleeting moment. Excuse me. I saw what liberation might look like. I saw what freedom can mean. I caught a glimpse of understanding of how the two Americas can come together. For a few precious minutes, I realized that the dreams of the ancestors, my dreams and hopes as well, can become reality. We have an opportunity right now to be part of that fulfillment of long-held dreams, for doing work that might take us on a journey ending with the realization of this country's ideals. As Isaac Scott, in his photographic essay, Whose Streets Marching Through Philadelphia, said, we only get certain moments in history where there's an opportunity to make real change. I hope we take advantage of this moment while we have it, said Scott, and I echo that. We are is the name of the hymn. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. And the rest of the lyrics to that hymn are these. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nation. We are seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of grace and the wisdom of ages. And we are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. And for each child born, a morning star rises and sings in the universe who we are. May it be so. Your closing hymn is Let Freedom Span Both East and West. All verses. As we extinguish this chalice, let us take with us into the coming week these words of Paul Robeson. I shall take my voice wherever there are those who want to hear the melody of freedom or the words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of despair and fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be attained. The song of freedom must prevail. The closing words were written by Desmond Tutu. And he titled them, or the UUA maybe titled them, Liberation is Costly. Liberation is costly. Even after the Lord had delivered the Israelites from Egypt, they had to travel through the desert. They had to bear the responsibilities and difficulties of freedom. There was starvation and thirst, and they kept complaining. They complained that their diet was monotonous. Many of them preferred the days of bondage and the flesh pots of Egypt. We must remember that liberation is costly. It needs unity. We must hold hands and refuse to be divided. We must be ready. Some of us will not use the day of our, some of us will not see the day of our liberation physically, but these people will have contributed to the struggle. Let us be united. Let us be filled with hope. Let us be those who respect one another. Are you ready? Go in peace and have a safe week.